Wolfman Jack.
For those of you on the audio, you just missed Dave beginning the show with the Wolfman Jack impression. Can we get that again, Dave?
One more time.
Hey, it's Wolfman Jack.
It's kind of shockingly good, in my opinion.
I wonder how much of our audience knows who Wolfman Jack is.
Only the old folks like me.
Yeah. So today's guest is going to be Kevin Tumlinson, and he's going to talk about downsizing for authors, which means firing everybody you know in this bad economy.
I thought it meant losing weight.
That's also down. No, that's just with. That's not with. That's or for. That's just downsizing authors.
Oh, okay.
That's not actually what Kevin's going to talk about. He's going to. It's kind of like intentional minimalism, which I guess minimalism would usually be intentional rather than somebody coming and forcing.
Well, yeah, forced minimalism. If you lose your house in tornadoes,
right? Well, no, that's like. I would like to force some minimalism on my mother. Can I do that? Is that possible? Because that would be fantastic.
And we liked this show topic because it's kind of about paring things down to what matters. We'll talk that about a lot more with Kevin. Sean, you opened your mouth slightly. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Well, I think that
I like watching Sean's mouth and seeing what happens with it.
It hits it hits us all slightly different. I think that you're moving right now, right? So you're actively in this you're knee deep in kind of getting rid of stuff and downsizing. I think that Dave probably stays up night wishing that he could downsize and get rid of shit. I mean, how many times over the years that we've been doing this show has Dave said that he wishes he could clean his closet? I mean, not his closet, his garage. Or his office. You're muted, dude.
I did clean my garage. Garage is clean.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. How much stuff did you get rid of?
I cleaned about half of it. My wife cleaned the rest.
Can we get a before and after?
Yeah. Do we have before and afters? No, because they could use that to somehow find his location.
Oh, that's true. They triangulate on that.
Let's just say the car fits in the garage now. There's plenty of room for the car, so. That's all you.
There's
really
probably
need to know.
if you were to take a photo, there's probably a serial number of something that could be zeroed in on by CIA types.
If they could do it on CSI, they can do it in real life. And
could they do that on the rotate 360 degrees?
You could probably get the chemical makeup of the sealant that was used on the garage floor, trace it back to the manufacturer, trace it back to the builders that built my home, and then you'd be able to find out exactly where I live.
See, and this is why we write together. I love.
And now you know how to do it. But I want to mention. Oh, go ahead.
Well, you're constantly you're moving right now, so you're downsizing, and Dave wishes he could probably downsize more and move. and
I live in Trump country, by the way.
I've just been constantly over the last, several years since I've moved from place to place to place. I'm at this point now where I hate stuff. So, we'll talk about that a lot more once Kevin's here. But I think that I think we all can talk about this, and it's interesting. And I think that, the author life, ideally, you can live anywhere, right? So if you get used to the idea that you don't need the trappings all around you, you're lightweight, then you could travel more, do more, live more.
And you also have and we'll talk about this when Kevin comes on, but you'll also find that you may not need what you think you need, honestly, because downsizing is more than just about stuff. So you may be like, oh, I thought I needed this to, become a full-time writer or to travel the world and be a Hunter S. Thompson type or something like that. So anyway, so I have something that I want to mention before we get to our something cools, and then Sean has something that he will mention, and Dave could also theoretically mention something.
You should just to keep up with the Joneses, dude. You should.
Kevin, you're too early. Go away. You're too early. Too early. Don't you know the protocol here? We're supposed to mock you mercilessly. We have to get through our something cools. Fuck off.
And we need to have an impromptu discussion.
We can say that because we love Kevin. I'll come back in an hour. No. Come back when we say, hey, we're done with our something cools, which will probably be around 2:15, 2:20 Eastern time. So we love you, Kevin, but go away for now. All right. So anyway, continuing on the announcement I wanted to make is that for those of you who are live, this won't be true, but very soon, actually, for anybody, is that Iterate and Optimize is is going to be out. Like if you're listening to this on iTunes, if you're just listening to the audio podcast feed, it's out now. And I'm very excited in advance. I'm loving the momentum that it is getting or will be getting by the time that I'm trying to predict. It's weird in the future. But that link is sterlingandstone.net/IO, the letter I, letter O for iterate and optimize. And for those of you, that's March 8th is when that's out for those of you who are live. And you actually can pre-order now, but we're trying not to really kind of announce it in advance, because Amazon does that thing where they penalize you if people buy early and there isn't this big spike. But if you want to pre-order it now, go knock yourself out. That's great. We'll send an email to the list as well, which is great. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, so this isn't my something cool, but it is something cool. Just not, I'm not going to take possession of it. But I have a friend named JB. His name's JB Glossinger, and
liar. That just sounds like a made up name.
Well, it might be. I've never asked him for any identification or anything. But if you guys remember that event. I mean, I know Johnny knows exactly what I'm talking about. Dave only half listens to what I say and only remembers a quarter of it. So this is probably lost on him. But that the event that I went and spoke at last November, I think it was, in Florida was what was his event. And he's just a really super, super smart guy, and his tribe loves him. He's been doing podcasts forever. He's the morning coach is his name. And he's been doing podcasts, I think, since like 2006 or something, which is in podcast years. That's a long time. That's basically since forever. And anyway, he just emailed last night that he's dying to come to the Smart Artist event. Like, he just had heard about it. I didn't tell him directly, but he heard from someone. And he's like, oh, can I still come to that? And if he's there, then he's going to get up and do an impromptu session, and that'll be great, because JB's not really like anyone you've ever met. He's a great businessman. He's also a total stoner and like surfer. And
wait, does he want that out there?
Yeah, no, JB wouldn't care. And he also has like 2 PhDs, one in business and one in metaphysics. He's just like
ayahuasca.
He's what I aspired to be.
Yeah, he is.
I haven't quite made it there yet.
He totally is. He's just not like anyone I've ever met. But he'll be a nice presence to have, and I really hope he does make it, because that would be really awesome.
So continuing to add value to the summit. It's getting too late to maybe book a flight, especially if you're listening on audio. But if you're local or if you're live and you still want to get a ticket, turning into quite an event, and I'm really loving the chatter on that. So that's in the Facebook group and stuff, people are getting excited, and I'm getting excited seeing the excitement. So it's that is smarterartistsummit.com. So I will just dismiss my something cool since we're running a little behind. But if you guys have them,
yeah, Dave, you want to go?
I got nothing except House of Cards. That's out today, the new season. I have not watched any of it because I'm here with you all. Thank you.
Is that what you'd be doing right now? Is that what you'd be doing right now? Otherwise,
I wouldn't be writing. I'd be watching House of Cards.
Yeah, they I got my email from Netflix this morning. I'm ready for House of Cards. I need to finish the thing I'm watching right now, which I might have for my next something cool. So I won't blow that yet. But I just saw The Revenant for on Wednesday on date day. We saw The Revenant, and I'm thrilled that I got to see it. Like, it's kind of amazing. And I was so put out with Inarritu winning Best Picture last year over Boyhood, because fuck Birdman. Like, it was fine. If he'd got Best Director, I'd have been okay with that. But Best Picture, just Boyhood was special. It should have won. And so, but I haven't seen Spotlight, which actually did win Best Picture this year, but he deserved Best Picture. Like, this movie is just directed so phenomenally well. And there's a bear attack. I'm sure Dave.
Oh, Dave.
Right.
Dramatic flashbacks.
The bear attack is one of
any cookies.
There are no. Give me your cookies. He gets a lot of Leo in his mouth, though, for sure. Yeah,
on that.
Well, it's certainly not you. But have you guys seen clips of this bear attack?
No,
I'm saving it for my viewing party.
Oh my God. It's just so it's just such a phenomenal few minutes of film. Like it's
I'll never go walking again if I see
no,
that.
you won't. You probably won't leave your house.
James Tall says that's an unbearable movie.
I see what you did there. But it's I mean the whole movie is amazing. Just some of the things in there, it's all shot in natural light, which is just kind of phenomenal. Some of the long takes, some of the battle scenes is just it's so exceptional. And Tom Hardy, who was Bane in Dark Knight Returns, and
Tom Hardy is one of my favorite actors. That dude is versatile.
So good. Yeah, he's so good.
Plays the mayor, right?
No, he plays the guy who gets who Leo
Bear is everywhere.
makes wages revenge on. But it's just it's a little slow. I did notice a lot of people leaving the theater throughout the 2 hours and 40 minutes that runtime,
like vomiting and stuff.
It's not for all the Lord's children, but it was very good. It was just Leo totally deserved his Oscar. I'm glad he finally won. I mean, what an amazing.
I felt bad that he's never won an Oscar. I mean, the guy just is like a zillionaire, and he sleeps with tons of models, and he just gets to do whatever movie he wants. He lives such a tortured life. I'm glad to see he's finally been rewarded in some way.
Fuck you. I'm not saying that. Like, I'm not crying for him. I'm just saying.
He's a what heir, Dave? He's a what heir?
A zillionaire.
Like, so how many dollars does he have?
Zillions.
What other things have zillions of antecedents?
I'm glad you asked. The 99 design. They have zillions of designers. And if you want to talk about award winning, you can get an award winning cover here, and you don't even have to suffer a bear attack, and you don't have to sleep with models even. You can get the best book cover.
You don't? Oh, thank God. Finally, a cover solution that doesn't require me to sleep with models.
It's
I'm
tough.
so tired.
It is tough. I mean, wading through a sea of hot models that all want you, it's very difficult. And it's also difficult to get a good book cover design. But it doesn't have to be, because the folks at 99 Designs, they have your back. They have zillions of designers waiting to make the best cover for you, a cover that's going to stand out. It's going to look like one of the other best-selling books, and that's what you want. You don't want a book that stands out for bad reasons. You don't want the equivalent of a bear attack for a book. You want a book. You want a book cover that looks as beautiful as Leo.
Yes. So if you'd like also to get your cover designed without the necessity of sleeping with models, start your custom design at 99designs.com/SPP. Use that link. You get the pre-Power Pack upgrade and a special model avoider powder that will keep them running from you.
Wow.
I've been wearing it all my life.
It's like the opposite of deodorant. And so that's 99designs.com/SPP. Use that link. And then there's no quiet way to invite Kevin. So I guess I just say, okay, you can call in now. I feel like I need
guys.
Look at that. He had his finger on the button on that one. Like he was ready the instant I said it. All right. So Kevin's joining us now. We've never had 4 on here, so I still can't see or hear anything.
We're on Hollywood Squares.
There we go.
Okay, wait,
Kevin Tumlinson to block.
Hello, Kevin.
I'm already watching the little applause thing to see if I start getting more than you guys.
Can we talk about
3? Look at Dave, 25.
Look at that.
Amy,
all you got to do is ask.
There you go.
Whenever you want anything out of life, you just ask. See.
So I would like to talk about the bow tie in your avatar. Before we talk about anything else.
It has its own podcast, actually. It has its own show on YouTube.
So it has not been downsized.
No, it has not been downsized. My head was upsized for that picture, actually. The Easter Island head.
That's fantastic.
So Kevin, do you want to give your own intro, because that's how we roll here? We've met you in person, which is unique amongst our guests. Well, not unique, but it's rare amongst our guests.
It's unique-ish.
Yeah, sure. I'm an author. Actually, I in large part, I have you guys to thank for my current author career, because
say more things like that.
Blame is probably a better word. No, but I started listening to you guys back almost day one. I mean, I've been listening to you guys for years, but
we're sorry.
I know, and I had a career in spite of all that. So I started writing in 2010, or I published actually first in 2008, and I've been doing that pretty regularly. And I have 2 or 3 podcasts of my own, including the Wordslinger podcast, which everyone but Dave has been on at this point.
Dave publicly agree right now.
Have I been invited on that?
You have been invited, yes. You even said, "Hey, hit me back in a week," and then I never heard from you again. No problem. No problem.
So you got voted on air.
It wasn't intentional.
There you go.
I suck at follow through. Just ask Sean.
I have this
he
obsession.
Does suck at follow through, to his credit and discredit. Ask him publicly right now, and then we can.
Will you be on my show, Dave?
I will be on.
If I could give you one of those roses from like The Bachelor, I would.
Yes, I'll sleep with you. I mean, I'll be on your show, Kevin.
I would like to see Dave with one of those roses in his teeth. Dave, will you take a picture? Oh, we have author photos in a few weeks. Dave, will you
do that?
Take an author photo?
No. You guys rejected my bubble bath idea, so no, I'm not putting a flower in my
Dave,
mouth.
it was more like the universe
fetish.
rejected your bubble bath idea.
Yeah, it was not the best idea.
It was okay. Who here? Give a high five to me if you want to see Johnny, Sean, and myself in a bubble bath.
Oh, that's
okay.
Pandering.
Wow, that is.
Well, look at that.
There we go.
Wow. I never saw numbers.
I think the universe.
Where's the downvote button? We have to put a stop to this.
Oh wow.
So when we're talking about, I mean, we gave a brief intro before, I don't know if you heard it, but the idea of downsizing for authors. I mean, give us your definition of that, and I think we all have stuff
I'll
to
tell
say
you where
about
this comes from right now for me is, my wife and I are planning to get on the road full time in an RV. So we have to physically downsize all of our stuff. We've got a huge footprint.
Are you going to be cooking meth?
We mostly. We got to pay for this somehow. The books aren't
Again.
But we sold our home. We had a 2,500 square foot 4-bedroom home with a very nice studio that I miss and a whole lot of space for me to write. But we sold that. We're currently living in a 1-bedroom apartment in Sugar Land, Texas. And the plan is to get into an RV. We're working with a financial advisor. We think we can probably do this maybe October 1st of 2017, I guess, is probably a little more accurate. But so downsizing, there's that physical component to it. But I've also had to change the way I do practically everything in my career. So there's been a sort of philosophical, spiritual, mental downsizing that's happening as well. I've had to compress the podcast down to basically this thing from my big studio. So that was a major change.
What did you have in your studio that you don't have now?
So it's funny because I used to have a television and video production company. So I had like $100,000 worth of gear that I had crammed in this tiny little converted closet. And so I kind of miss it. But I had, a whole professional rig. I had a very high-end studio microphone. I had a mixer board. I had, everything you could possibly imagine for something radio-like, because I used to work in radio years ago. So I had a very radio-oriented
You've got a radio
studio.
voice.
Thank you very much. I grew it myself.
You got a face made for radio.
I have a face made for radio on both ends, actually. Yeah. So the footprint of the studio changed dramatically because really what happened was I had a failure of a vital piece of equipment and had to go on air, very shortly after that. And I improvised something, and now that's kind of my full-time solution. And it's been it's convenient because I can carry it with me practically anywhere.
It sounds good. Yeah, it doesn't. I wouldn't know.
Yeah, most people don't know. Well, I don't do a video podcast, so for most people, I think there was no hint in the transition from the really expensive studio to I'm sitting at a table and in basically my kitchen.
Well, part of that too is I think, and this goes for anybody trying to downsize, is it's like you didn't need all that equipment because you had the know-how, like
right?
You know how to use what you have, and
Exactly.
so it's not about needing all this stuff. It's about maximizing what you
right.
have.
And that was kind of part of that's part of the downsizing idea as well, is that you can rethink what you do and what you have. I was kind of locked into, probably because of my career, I was locked into, I have to do it this way. Like, I have to have processors. I have to have the mixer. I have to have multiple microphone inputs, even though only one human being can fit in this studio at a time. So it was a change in perspective. I had to rethink, how I was doing it. And that ended up benefiting me in a lot of ways. Because now the podcast is actually much more portable. I can do this from anywhere. I'm going to probably do one from Toronto next week. And not that wasn't possible before. Everyone has access to like the little USB, the snowball microphones and that sort of thing. But I wasn't thinking that way. Like everything had to be done in studio.
Well, it's incremental, right? Like once you have one little mind shift, it's easier to get that next mind shift, and then the one after that, and the one after that.
Exactly right. Yeah.
And that's how you get the ball rolling. And I think it's very easy for us to all go on autopilot as far as the way we acquire stuff, and we don't really think about it. And it's kind of silly.
Well, we hold on to so many things for ridiculous reasons. And, I talk about this a lot. Like my wife is holding on still to this bed, and it's not, there's nothing fancy about it. There's no headboard, no footboard. It's a box spring.
Did you make babies in it?
We didn't make any babies in it. She got it from her grandmother. Now, her grandmother may have made a whole bunch of babies. Well, no, yeah, my wife and I didn't make any babies in it. I'll let you draw whatever conclusions you want from that. But she's still holding on to this thing, and there's no reason. I'm just kidding. Please don't listen to this, honey. There's no reason for us to.
Dave
keep
says
this
that every
thing
week
because literally at this point, we're holding on to it because no one else wanted it. So now we have this weight we carry around with us, and we're paying to store it right now, and there's no point in it. So part of our process of downsizing is changing how we think about possessions and what actually does have meaning for us, and whether or not we need to hold on to that, or if we want to let it go for someone else to enjoy.
I got an air mattress last year because I spent, I think it was like $2,000 or more on a bed, really nice bed, but it's the most uncomfortable thing I've ever. It hurt my back all the time. So I was like desperate and in pain. So I just bought an air mattress thinking it can't be any worse. And it's like the most comfortable thing ever. And I'm loving it. I'm sleeping on it all the time.
So like what? Now. One of those like inflatable mattresses you buy like
camping,
you pump it up with your foot.
Yeah, I got one of those ones that was PVC free, so I don't have to smell chemicals all night. And it's been great. I mean, it's not ideal, but I love it. And if you were going to be in an RV or something, I mean, that'd probably be something awesome. We
have this whole plan. We have a small RV that we bought. Sort of we'll call it our starter RV. We have this, what we're calling phase 1 right now, where we live in an apartment, but we're ranging out and traveling, 2 or 3 times a month, as sort of practice, I guess. And the RV we have now is tiny. It's like this little A-frame thing that, and people dig it. Like when we're on a campground, we're surrounded by these skyscraper RVs, and they love this tiny little A-frame RV there. But we bought like this foam mattress topper for it that's like 4 inches thick and sleeps like a dream. So and rolls up and gets out of the way when we need it to.
There you go.
It's sorry. Go ahead, Johnny.
Well, I was gonna weigh in on some of this. I mean, I've been, as Sean mentioned, like I've been doing all this same stuff because I'm moving, and there's a few things if you've never sold a house, like it's kind of a pain in the ass, and the one enemy to one of the enemies to buyers, obviously, if you have a giant hole in your floor, they don't like that either.
Right.
Is clutter. Mm-hmm. And so I've just tried to get rid of everything that I can for not get rid of, but to get it out of the way as much as possible for 2 basic reasons. The first is because, so we actually looked into having somebody move us, into getting like Atlas van lines or something, and just they come in and they take all your shit and they put it in boxes and then they unpack it on the other end. And the reason we decided not to do it is because it was really fucking expensive. But then once we started the process of doing our own self move, it was like, I'm really glad we didn't do that, because now we're having to look at everything and say, that's been sitting on that shelf for like forever. And do we want to take it with us into our new life? And so we've donated or thrown away a ton of stuff.
Right.
And in addition, we've packed up a bunch of stuff that's sort of like, because we don't want to have to pack all at once. So we have, sort of pre-packed stuff that we knew we could get away with. So like the books on my bookshelf. And what I think is going to happen is I think we're going to have a phase 2 downsizing when we move, which is imminent.
We are.
So I think we're going to, you're right. So I think that we're going to get to our location and we're going to go, you know what? We've been living without this for like 2 months now.
Yeah.
Do we really need it? And I think we're going to get rid of a bunch more stuff.
I actually have a friend of mine who literally once a year, he and his wife go, now his wife, he used to do it single also, but they go through everything. They put a bunch of stuff in boxes. They don't label the boxes. They put a date on it. And then they put it in, they don't have a storage unit, but they have like a building, an outbuilding. So after a year, if no one has opened that box to even look inside of it, he takes it and donates it, which I think is kind of ballsy.
That's awesome.
But
I love that.
That's a great way to think, because you're not.
I'm sorry, Kevin.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to tell a similar story. There's these two guys. They call themselves the minimalists. They're friends of mine. Joshua Fields Milburn and sorry, I don't remember, Ryan Nicodemus, I want to say. Mm-hmm. And they told a story. I think it's from Josh. I think it's from their latest book, or was the latest book at the time, about when one of them was, I think Ryan wanted to get into this minimalism thing, and Josh was already in it. And so they had a moving party. Yeah. And what they did was they came over to his apartment and they packed up literally everything he owned as if he was moving. Everything. Like they put his bed in one of those big bags and they packed up all the shit and they just put it in the middle of the room. And then the rule was, I forget how long the period of time was, but it was like a week or 2 weeks that he had to unpack everything. So the first night he had to unpack his bed and he had to unpack his toothbrush. Anything he needed, he had to go and unpack it. And anything that wasn't unpacked in a certain period of time, he had to get rid of.
Yeah.
Which is kind of wow, that's kind of radical. And I don't know that I could do that, but
that's too hardcore for me. But I think we do have an unnecessary attachment to, just tangible things that we want to hold, right? And it's silly. Now, there's a couple of things that have really made me go off way off the reservation on this. One, my mother. Okay, so my mom.
You should keep your mother.
Hey, he hasn't used her in 2 weeks.
But you can see her hoard from space.
You can see my mom's backyard from space. She has that much shit. I'm so not kidding. Like if you put her address into a map app, and you get a satellite image, you can actually see her piles. And her inside isn't any better. It's like knee deep.
Yeah.
And so, and I grew up with that shit. Like it's way bad now because she doesn't have me and my sister and my dad like screaming at her all the time.
She could be on hoarders easily, you're saying.
Yes, I made the joke, and I'm actually not kidding, that if we called hoarders out there, they would not accept her because they think that shit was staged. Like, oh, you just want to be on TV. Like, it's so bad.
Dead animals and stuff.
No, there's no dead animals, but she does feed the raccoons that live under her house.
Right.
It's time to call her on the air again.
And then they're like chewing through wires and shit. Oh my God, my mom is just like, I love her, but she's a mess. And so like she just makes me not want anything. And then naturally, I've accumulated, and, Cindy's accumulated, and we have children and they accumulate, but we're about to move, in a few months, we'll be moving for the 5th time in, 6 years. So we've been moving a lot in just a not very big period of time. And every time we shed more, we shed more skin. And at this point, like it's no holds barred. Like there's nothing I want to keep. Like I'm willing to just have so little. And at this point, I don't want things. Like I want a few things that are very, very nice.
Yeah.
Where before, it's like stuff like clothes. I only want a few items of clothes, but I want them all to be like awesome. Like I want really nice clothes.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. It kind of contradicts. Is like I want a thing, but it's like this is where I spend all my time, so I'm going to have a nice desk.
There's a tip when it comes to clothes, by the way, that Karen and I have kind of put into use. All my clothes suck, honestly, but that idea of hanging things with the hanger in one direction, like backwards, I guess, and then as you wear things, and you wash them and put them back sort of the right way, right? So that at the end of a month or 2 months or whatever, you look and all the things that are still backwards are clothes that you don't wear very often. So that's a cue for you to take that stuff and donate it.
Yeah, I have a rule that anything new that I get, anytime I bring in something new into my closet, I get rid of something.
Yeah, that's a good rule.
100% of the time. So it doesn't grow.
Some people should have that rule with children.
Yeah.
Like I like getting, new t-shirts because I'm in t-shirts a lot. So every time like I'll get a new t-shirt, it's time to retire one,
Right.
because otherwise like what's the point? You just bring all of this stuff in. But I also think it's really interesting how much culture has changed because, for me, I want freedom, right? And if you look at, even 10 years ago, 20 years ago, certainly 100 years ago, the more stuff you had, the more prosperous you were, right? And if you look at the way that technology is going, there's so many things that we used to need, right? And our phone does those things, like our entire movie library, our entire book library, a flashlight, a calculator, a camera. Like there's all these things. You can have, a couple of devices and a few items of clothing, and really you can live. You can survive and still have a lot of stuff.
I recently read Peter H. Diamandis's book Abundance, and he has a follow-up.
That was fantastic.
The amazing books, right? And there's a section in that book that talks about how, in the 80s, prosperity was measured by, you have a stereo system, you have a high-tech camera, you have a high-tech video camera, there are all these piles of things. And now all of that's been replaced by the iPhone. And we've definitely moved into a more mobile culture.
Yeah, an entire set of encyclopedias.
Yeah, every book that I want to read, I can read on my iPhone now, right? So I still love like print books, and it's been very difficult to let that stuff go because, I have this nostalgic obsession with them. But, because we're making this move, it helps a lot that we have sort of a goal, right? We want to be more mobile. We want to get into a space, roughly the size of our bedroom and live in it for a while because we want to trade stuff. Excuse me. We want to trade stuff for experience. And that's kind of the motivation. I think a lot of people are getting to that point. This whole tiny house movement, everything is about reducing your footprint, but increasing the experience that you have.
Now, I watched the tiny house shows on the various channels and stuff, and it looks like a nice idea, but I swear to God that everybody that's in these tiny houses 5 years from now, they're going to be like, what the hell did I just do?
And maybe they are. And, I can tell you for certain that Kara and I are not going to want to live in an RV for 10 years, probably 2 years tops. But the point of it is to have a new front yard every couple of months. And
I don't want a tiny house. I want a giant house with nothing in it,
with wheels.
And a missile silo. That's what I'm really.
Yeah, I want big empty rooms like that. That I do want space. I admire the tiny house movement,
by your stuff,
but it is so not for me. Like I actually like space. I like big rooms. I want a movie theater in my house someday.
Yeah.
Like that'll be awesome.
We do too. I mean, we're part of the. Excuse me, man, I'm choking up on your show. Part of the goal of this also is to kind of, it's like a roaming sort of house hunting thing, I mean, it's sort of one part book tour, one part house hunting. We're going to find that place that we feel most at home and build a home there. And so, we don't want to be locked down because our entire marriage, we've lived in the Houston, Texas area. I've lived more or less in this area my whole life. And, I love being in Denver. I love being in, upstate New York. And, there's a lot of places that we've loved visiting. And we've always talked about, what would it be like if we lived here? And it may suck. So we don't want to just buy a house and move there just because we have the flexibility and freedom to do that. But we can go stay there for 3 or 4 months and become part of the culture there a little and experience that life and then decide at that point, we like it here, we'll stay, or we don't like it here, let's go try somewhere else.
So I have a question. I'm a very sentimental person. I know this will surprise some people who think I have no
That's
heart.
what I love about you, Dave.
I have difficulty getting rid of things like like stuff that was given to me, like a gift from an old friend or a gift from somebody that died. Like I have sentimental feelings for those things, and I feel like if I get rid of them, I'm getting rid of a piece of that. It's difficult, and I also save like stuff my son did, like in preschool and kindergarten, like art that he made or something. I have for me, like throwing away a piece of art that my son made, even if it looks like crap because he was just in kindergarten, his finger paint or whatever. To me, getting rid of that is like
sacrilege.
Yeah. It's like,
can you take a picture of it so you still have
and
the memory?
kids produce a lot of stuff too.
pictures aren't forever though, man. You pictures, they could be lost, and I don't know.
In the stuff.
I would say a picture. I would say a digital picture is a lot more.
Okay, well,
here's
when
what I would say.
when the giant EMP strikes and gets rid of all of your digital photos, and you have nothing left.
When the giant EMP strikes, we're going to have worse problems than we lost our kids' artwork.
Yeah, like if the EMP strikes, you're not going to give a shit about a macaroni.
Get in the water, but I can't find my home movies anymore.
I have to boil my kids' macaroni art now because we need it for food.
Like I do totally agree with the sentiment of memories over stuff. We did that for Christmas this last year. I finally felt like my children were old enough to kind of sit down and I just said, hey, like, do you really need more crap that you're going to be bored with in a few months? And,
yes.
Yeah. Why don't we instead, take the same money that we would use on Christmas and put it towards a vacation for next year. And we're doing that relatively soon, and that's exciting for us to, as a family, go and enjoy that time, because it's exactly that. I'd rather have those memories than just more stuff to trip over, on the house.
And by the way, and kind of just jumping back to what Dave was asking, because it is tough to get rid of that stuff, and I'm very nostalgic too. Okay, like I have stuff from like first grade in my home still. And I think you can kind of trick yourself into getting rid of it in a way, because it's sort of that out of sight, out of mind. Even the stuff that you find very poignant when you look at it and it reminds you of something, your kids, it reminds you of your parents or whatever.
A time when life didn't suck.
Yeah, exactly. When was that? So if you were to just put that in a box and leave it in your attic or closet or something for years, and eventually you would forget about it, right? So it's kind of the same thing. I mean, I would say just put it away, get it out of sight for a while until you've forgotten. And I love the method of I'm scared to death to try this, but I love the method of, put it away and leave it in an unmarked box and then hand that box to somebody in a year because you've never opened it. Now, if I go diving in that box, it means there was something in there I wanted. So that's a sign to keep it. But
I think
I'll give it to Sean, so he'll be like, thanks, I didn't want your shit.
That's what you can do. Find a buddy and give all your crap to them.
I think there's momentum, though, because after I saw because it was the minimalist guys, they did a book tour, and so they're friends of mine. So I went and saw them, and then I'm squirrely, and so I got inspired, and I was like, okay, I'm going to come back, and I'm going to get rid of 10 things every day, like and it's instant like that. That doesn't seem very hard, especially when I had a lot of things, and so that I kept that up for a while, and then I stopped, and I just said, well, we've got space, and then the next time that I sort of started getting rid of things was for this move. And there's a big difference. There's a big, big, big difference, because I didn't really have a reason for it before. And there's a real element of, well, it's not hurting anything, I could get rid of it, but that requires an action, and I have to think about it. And it's not hurting anything. It's over there, especially if it's in a box, because it's in the basement. And what's that hurting? But when I had a reason, it was like the stuff, the import, like it's kind of hard to describe. It's like the stuff itself separated into what the stuff represented and what the stuff actually physically was in the real world. Mm-hmm. And I became much more content with, so for instance, I scanned in, I didn't do this, I sent them away, a shitload of photos. Mm-hmm. So like we had just bags of because we got married when, but really before digital photography was big, and we could put the little digital, the little disposable cameras on the table. And so everyone took pictures, and we just had shitloads. Now we kept our actual wedding album, but we had all of those. We had just a ton of photos, and I boxed them up. I found a place and I sent away, and then they sent me a DVD. I didn't even keep the DVD. I just put them on my external hard drive. I backed them up to the cloud, so I got a few copies. And then it's like they're gone. And that fed on itself. Like once I got rid of some shit, I was like, ooh, what else can I get rid of? And it became really interesting to see, what don't I need? Here's a bunch of books that I haven't read these in a while. And if I want them again, then I'll get the digital copies or I will buy them again. But what are the chances? Like, let's err on the side of getting rid of stuff.
And I will say,
did you back your dog up to the cloud?
My dog?
Yeah.
No, I kept the actual. I keep the actual animals.
Oh,
I want to digitize.
But I did that with
the ashes of
videotapes. I had VHS tapes too, and I did the same thing. And I got rid of the tapes and everything. I don't have the originals anymore.
It was
have
like
several digital copies.
DVD Armageddon here when we started kind of clearing house because we owned 20 plus years of DVDs. For some reason
I have that problem too. I haven't bought one in ages, but
same here. But we still had we had the backlog of it, and we're literally going through these and saying, when was the last time we watched this? And shortly after it was released on DVD is pretty much the answer, and all that stuff. Exactly, which I wore out my VHS copy of. All that stuff, most of that's available online somewhere. And so what is really the point of keeping it? If there's ever a movie that I'm like, I just got to see this movie, I can find that movie somewhere online. There's no point in me having an old beat up VHS or a DVD of it. But it's hard to let that stuff go because there's an investment in it. That's
right. It's sunk costs.
Right.
It's like, because I used to have tons of CDs, and I probably paid $12 to $15 each for them. And so I probably had thousands and thousands. And this was when I was a kid, right? Yeah. So I just bought them one at a time. And then when I finally got rid of them, because I had them, all digitally, or I could get them digitally, I took them to like the CD exchange, and I'd take a stack this big, and they'd give me, or like this
Here's
big.
Your $1.50.
Yes. But it was just like, it's not, do I want it out of my life? It became more about getting rid of the stuff than about getting the money back from.
We have to let go of this idea that there's a financial investment we have to recoup on this stuff. I mean, basically, once you've parted with the cash for it, that cash is gone. And if you get anything in return for it, you're just lucky. Just count that stuff as, it's the same thing with books. I mean, I enjoy a book. I love a book. It becomes a part of me. I don't need to hold on to it for it to remain in my heart, as it were. And in fact, it's better for me to let it go and go, entertain someone else or inspire someone else. But we hold on to that stuff because we start to think of it as a part of ourselves. And that makes it fiendishly difficult to get rid of.
Right, because if we're shedding that, then we're shedding a bit of who we are at a time. And it's silly.
So
that notion of getting money back for it, though, is silly, though, because if you can get something back and help recoup the expense, that's great. But a DVD you've owned for 20 years, what do you really expect to get as a return on that?
You got your money out of that. It was $1 a year.
Yeah. And so, I digitized my entire CD library the first time we moved, many years ago. And that was awesome because I can't imagine having to navigate CDs right now. That just seems so backwards. I wish I could snap my fingers and do the same thing to my DVD collection. That would be amazing. But it's important to talk about the why of all of this because it's great to downsize, but what's the real benefit there?
And also, for the title of the show, Downsizing for Authors, how does this play into, how does this make you a better writer to be downsized?
Well, that's exactly where I was going.
Those two dovetail into each other, I can tell you. Because, go ahead, Sean. I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, so the
Stooges.
No, so the why for me, there is a mental weight, and it's very difficult to describe to people, especially if they're determined they're going to hold on to their stuff. But Kara and I made this decision. We want to move on, and experience is the thing that we want to capture out of life, and the stuff is holding us back. So our why is, if we hold on to all this physical stuff, then it makes it much more difficult, if not impossible, for us to go off and achieve that life that we want, to get out there and experience more of the world and meet new people in new places and that sort of thing. So physically, it becomes a literal weight. I mean, even though we don't have to carry that stuff with us, there's an expense to keeping it in storage. There's sort of this mental weight that goes with us everywhere because we have to worry about this stuff that's in Texas.
Yeah, you become a prisoner of your shit.
Yeah,
and that's just silly.
If you're a fan of Tim Ferriss at all, he just released one of his podcasts was a letter from Seneca about how your possessions end up owning you, and that's very much true. Like all this garbage that we keep around, for whatever reason we keep it, ends up dictating our choices in life. So the biggest why there is really, I want to dictate my own choices. I don't want to have to make a decision because I'm holding on to a box spring mattress. I want to have a better life than that. And as far as it dovetails into being an author, Well, for one, the more experiences I have, the better my writing is going to be. You know, it changes the whole flavor and timbre and tone of what I write, even if I'm not writing about the space I'm in. You know, I when I wrote Evergreen was set in Manhattan because I was in Manhattan. I fell in love with the place. But I wrote Citadel in Paris and never included anything about Paris in that book. But it did change the tone of the book. I mean, it gave it a much better flavor than it would have had it been written in Wild Peach, Texas, where I was born. So
getting out of your space and out of your environment and seeing new things and new scenery it opens channels in the brain.
Right.
I'd also say that, when my office is like a complete and utter mess and just full of clutter, it affects my, emotions. It affects my writing in ways. And I think having, a nice, clear space that's just not full of all of your shit that's just weighing you down emotionally is probably beneficial as well.
Right.
And as somebody who just went through this, there is definitely there is the lifting of the weight. One of the things, and I can already predict Dave's jokes. So just so you know, I see your jokes coming a mile away.
We have a theme song for Dave's jokes. We need that one.
It changes your possibility mindedness. So we, as I've spoken ad nauseum about on the show, like we're in the midst of moving, and literally all it takes is for the house to sell. Like it's on the market. A bunch of people have seen it multiple times. Like it's just I could get a call right now. Yeah. But and that'd be kind of cool. So bring it on.
My wife's
I remember that entire process, by the way. That was just November for us. So
right, but 6 months ago it was just like, oh my God, we have this really impossible to move out of lifestyle, and I felt anchored. So I felt anchored for a few reasons. One, because we didn't feel we had the money to move and all this stuff, but also just and here's the part where Dave jokes. My wife has horses, and so that is a huge. Yeah, that is a huge thing because they really anchor you. You know what I mean? Like we couldn't go on vacation for too long because her parents would have to come over twice a day and like feed them and let them out and stuff. And so she sold them all, and she's still going to have them.
Full of people, and I have to get rid of too.
I know, right? Like they're obligated to you
because horses are delicious.
Oh, and she's going to listen to that, Kevin. And she's going to meet you in person and be very angry about that. So, she's still going to have them, but she's going to get a new one when we move, and the horse will be boarded. Now, obviously, that requires an expense, but suddenly, I guess what I'm saying is the horses, all the shit, and we live on country land, so I was just like, oh my God, like. It's going to be hard to sell this place. Like the idea of cleaning up and moving seemed like this huge like I couldn't imagine this daunting task. And now it's like, oh, okay, that wasn't so hard because we got rid of so much, because we said, what can we downsize? Not just in terms of stuff, but in terms of like the things we're doing. And I know too, that when I saw the Ryan and Josh at the Minimalists, I remember asking, like, what if you have kids, right? Because kids produce a ton of shit. Kids want to hoard a ton of shit. And I was shocked. My kids got right in on it. We went through all their stuff. They were like, oh, get rid of that, pack that up, give that away, throw that away. I was amazed that they were willing to do it.
Yeah.
We got a couple comments here. Shit, I hate the comments on here. People
he hates you all, everybody.
No, I hate how it gets away from you. Dylan Ryder. Shit. Okay. Basically,
oh man, Dylan, come on, keep it clean.
This is awesome.
He says, I love doing a massive decluttering. God damn it, stop commenting, people. I really hate comments. Cluttering of my room every 6-8 months. It feels liberating, and fuck it, never mind. I hate you all. Yeah, I can't read the comments because Johnny's a pet.
Wow, they're just fucking with you, Dave. Wow.
Hey, Blab people, we could use a scroll bar and a fix function where it doesn't move when you comments.
Kate Morgan says, my husband's a major hoarder. She once got rid of a futon she didn't need, and within a week he brought another one home because it was free.
There you go. See, that's my problem, man.
That's my mom.
I'm a junk driver, and if you don't know what that means, it's basically Buddy and I get up on trash days and go scour curves for things that we might like. So
we count on you guys.
My mom does that, but I have a different name for it.
But I don't hoard it.
We put shit out, and I'm like, that don't worry about it. They won't take
Kevin
that
will
away.
be here.
Somebody's gonna come and get that. Kevin will be here.
But we repurpose things. I've had to tame that urge since I've been living in an apartment. I have a garage, but I don't want to. It's got a camper in it, so I don't want to clutter it with a bunch of garbage. But that was something that was hard to let go of because it was a habit. It was not just a habit; it was something I enjoyed. It was a hobby.
Hard habit to break.
Yeah,
my mom. When we lived in an apartment, my mom would try to bring stuff. This is when Cindy and I first got married. My mom would bring stuff over all the time, and I'm like, stop it! We don't have space for that. Just stop it. And then we got a pretty big house actually. And that's where we ran the preschool at. So she came over for dinner every Thursday night, and she never came empty-handed. Yeah. And I would be like, stop that shit. And she would bring stuff that she just saw. Oh, I saw this out on someone's lawn. They were putting it out for trash. And I just couldn't leave it there. And we could do a whole show on this. Because
look, in her defense, I don't know your mom. I don't know your mom, despite what they might say. But in her defense, sometimes people throw out some pretty cool stuff.
No, but I don't need it. And out of all of these, I'm just going to skip to the funniest one because, oh my God. One day she comes over and
a fleshlight.
No. Ethan is maybe 2.5 or 3. And she brings him, this is for Ethan. She brings him a big giant
fleshlight
donkey. All right. It's like a donkey, it's not a stuffed animal because it was hard, so you couldn't cuddle into it.
All right,
it was like this is a big giant donkey. All right, and it was like the fur was all matted.
Oh, someone to use that.
Yeah, and it was like you could climb onto it. It was about the size of a carousel horse.
Sex toy.
Okay, and it was a donkey. And wait, the best part, it was missing its tail, and it just had a big rusty hole.
Which is, by the way, the name of the children's book we'll be penning about this very story.
And I'm like, why did you bring me a Tijuana fuck toy for my funeral? I don't understand. And yes, I actually did say that to my mother.
Okay, thank you, Dylan Perry. He put his comments in the question column, so it won't go away unless a bunch of you bastards start writing questions. Dylan Perry says, I love doing a massive decluttering in my room every 6 months. It feels so liberating. Rarely regret what I gave up, barring a few exceptions.
So let me raise the two best minimalism questions that I've run up against. And one is the tyranny of because it's free, which is what you guys are talking about. And also why not, right? Why it's not taking up any space. It's just why? Oh, no. It's actually what if I need it, which is one that people I know have run they use that. Well, I'm going to need that sometime. And my stepdad used to that was like a weapon almost. Well, I found that bolt that I had with the 3,000 other bolts. Aren't you glad that I'm hoarding these bolts?
These IKEA tools don't just come along every time you buy furniture,
Yeah, right. My mom says that about ketchup stains.
So
what was it? And I guess I
well the two biggest reasons that people tend to accumulate or keep things.
Yeah.
Are because it's free. Why would I not?
Right.
And we go to this. We're in the kids and Robin are in a few organizations, and every once in a while, they'll give away the centerpieces. What? And they're shitty, two cups taped together or something.
Right.
Why would I want that? Why do I want that? And
yet we keep that crap, and I'm not certain why we keep that stuff. We do it too. My wife and I will come home with something, instead of it going in the dumpster on the way out, they will come home with it, so that we have to figure out what to do with it when it's in our home. And
so there's that. And then, sorry, just to finish, because you asked what it was. The other thing was, what if I need it someday?
So the one if I need it someday actually is a better question to me because, I grew up in a household. I was raised by my grandparents. And they came through the Depression, and it was about keep everything. My grandfather had a rubber band ball that was the size of my head that was worthless. It was basically this big rubbery goo.
It might plug up that rusty donkey hole.
And rusty donkey hole.
We kept that stuff forever. And when he passed away,
right, rusty donkey hole.
Rusty Donkey Hole. I want in on this if you guys write this book. I'm just letting you know now. But we even after, here's what's really grating is like my grandfather passes away and we've got all this crap, that he held on to for years. And there's that part of you, that whisper in your head that says, some of this stuff could be valuable. It could be used, and you don't want to get rid of it. I had to go through that. I mean, I keep everything, and I'm actually a very neat and very organized person. So, me keeping everything's a little different than Sean's mom, but I don't need any of that stuff. And I was holding on to, like I said, IKEA tools and, even like little scraps of paper that match like, the color of something. I don't know why I held on to that. It was just there. But getting rid of that, there was a kind of catharsis that came with getting rid of it. And the difficulty was just pushing through that kind of mental barrier where, where I am saying I might need this someday. I used to have a collection of wires and cables from equipment from 20 years ago, most of which was proprietary. Like I couldn't plug that into anything that exists today. When am I going to need that? So you have to actually kind of get a little tough with yourself and ask yourself, what is the specific scenario in which I am going to need this scrap of wire or this?
Can I go on Amazon?
And what is the scenario? Like the number of times you're not going to need it versus the one time you are.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, is it worth it? Just you have to pay $10 to buy it again because you're getting rid of thousands of things.
Right. Yeah.
So one last, there's a question from Serve
Mock, I think.
And let's close on this because we have another SPP right after this that you guys can come and join in that one too. And it's what about emotional value? And before I hand the mic over, I'll just give my answer to that quickly. And I think that there's this misperception that if you say it out loud, it kind of loses some of its hold on you. And that's that if you keep something for emotional value, there's this circuit that says I am betraying what that stood for by getting rid of it.
Well, that's
or
like
if
how Dave was feeling about getting rid of, his son's art, right? Like, how can I do that and still love my son, right?
And I
or
think
if the person is dead, I'm letting them go. If I
like if your father dies and all of a sudden you have like all his stuff, you have to decide which things should you keep, what was important to him, and I think that would be very.
But he is not stuff. So my grandpa, who I loved my grandpa to pieces, and he's gone. And I have one thing. I have a ring he used to wear, and that's it. That's all I have. But I have.
If I took that from you, wouldn't you be upset?
No, I wouldn't be. Like whatever. Like I still have all my. It doesn't affect my memories of him at all. There was a table that I wanted that was from the 1800s. And my cousin took it, and I kind of wanted that, but whatever. Like, it's I have all my memories of my puppy. Like, I don't need that.
I think the way that you kind of counteract the sort of emotional hang up of getting rid of something is to find a way to attach emotion to it so that you can provide it, if that makes sense. So, if I have, say, something my grandfather left me that's very precious to me. Who could I give it to, or who could I provide it to that could get the same sort of pleasure out of it that he did, or make it something meaningful as you get rid of it, instead of just saying I'm going to take this to Goodwill. And in the case of your kid's artwork or something, I think the key there is to involve the kid and say, we don't have room for this. We've got photos of it so that we can remember it. What would you like to do with it?
We did that. Yeah. We did that. They made those choices, a lot of them.
Right.
Yeah,
I think that's healthy for everyone. It's healthy for them and for you.
Yeah. And Dave, that's actually a really good thing, because then you're teaching your son that, that there isn't power in stuff, that there's power and that's healthy. Like, that's just good. You have to, and I know what Kevin's saying about, find somebody else who likes it, but in a lot of cases that's not going to work because no one else is going to like it.
That can be a trap. Like that can be a reason not to get rid of something.
But then you just have to say it's an equation. Is your freedom greater than or equal to the value of this thing? Then probably yes. So just, man up.
There was a time that my wife had thrown away something that my son had made at school, and he saw it in the trash, and he was pretty devastated.
Yes, but she did that without running it by him, right? Like, she just threw it away, and he wasn't a part of the process.
Yeah, she's a little less attached to things than I am, so it's easier for her. Yeah.
It's funny. My wife only holds on to things that annoy me, really.
And if you throw things out, a bear might come and open it up and expose your hypocrisy.
What we're doing really is when we throw this stuff out, we're arming these bears. So we have to be careful about what we give them.
All right. So I actually could go on and on about this, but we do need to get to our next SPP. We're gonna have Maya Good, who's going to talk about intentional reading for authors, which is sort of a feed your head sort of a thing, which I think is going to be a really, really cool topic. So if you're live on Blab, you can stick around. If not, you'll hear that next week. Thank you for being on, Kevin. Do you have anything you want people to check out?
Well, definitely go to my website at kevintumlinson.com, where you can find all kinds of neat stuff about me. And I have several podcasts of my own, because that's what we writers do these days, start podcasts. So you can definitely tune into the Wordslinger podcast. I won't advertise the others. They're like competition to you guys. We won't do that.
Oh, there's no competition.
There's no competition.
But I do want to ask Dave to be on the show. So if you guys want Dave to be on the show, you should definitely vote it all up right now. Just hit a
I will be on. You just got to remind me.
I will remind you. All right. Thanks for having me on, guys.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, everybody. Just go ahead and I don't know what to say there. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you next time. And I'll stop the recording.